friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. This is more about why some of us do what we do. For example, why we choose to grow a garden and put up our own food. Why we choose to either live off-grid or have items that can enable us to live off-grid if we need to, and so on and so forth. And so I picked a few random topics just based on what we do, because these are where these questions on videos that I have about these are where these questions come in. A lot of them are people that just kind of stumble across the video and then are like, well, why would you do that? Why would you do so much work where you can use electricity to do that, or you can just go down to the store and buy food, or whatever it is? So I know that most of you already following me already know the answers to these questions. So hopefully this will be something that either new people coming in or people that are just stumbling across this video will help them to understand why some of us make these choices, and something that those of you who are the part of the choir that I would just be preaching to can share with those people that have these same questions. The most recent one came in on my video about how I do laundry off-grid. Now, I'm not even sure sometimes people even watch the whole video. They just see a title and come in and comment. And that is how I do laundry off-grid when I have to. But it's not something I depend on all the time right now. But I did have about a 6-week period back in 2020 when our old washing machine finally broke down. Patrick tried fixing it many different times and could never quite figure out what was the deal with it. And so it was just time for a new washing machine. However, because it was 2020, it took 6 weeks for us to get a new washing machine. So then I was able to fall back on the off-grid setup that we had put together. We have a video series, but I think back in 2016 we did this video series, or early 2017, where Patrick put together the tubs, built the frame, the whole works, and then in 2020 I did a more thorough video on how I use it. So when we first got it together, I did start working with it right away, just to get familiar with it so I would be used to using it if indeed something happened, like a power outage and it's in the middle of winter and we're not getting enough solar power to run the washing machine, or just like happened in 2020, the washing machine just breaks down and it might be a while before we can either afford to buy a new one or are able to get one in. And so it was a blessing to have that off-grid setup for that very purpose, and that is exactly why we have it. Now there's people out there, they live completely off-grid, so they use various different off-grid methods for doing their laundry all the time. That's just how they live. Now on this current piece of property, it's the only piece of property we have that we have power. It's the one we've had since we got married. And so we have a setup where we're partially off-grid. As far as things that require electricity, we can do that more in the summertime where we're getting more solar power. And then in the wintertime, we have other things to make up the difference. We might have to use more electricity for this, but we can fall back on our wood stove for many other things, like drying the clothes, cooking, and heating the house. Which is, I shouldn't even say fall back, because that is what we use to heat the house, dry the clothes, and so on through the winter. And where we live, power outages are actually pretty common. We just had another one the other day because we had a windstorm that came up out of the blue and the power went out for a full day. Not an issue for us, because with our solar power backup and with our other means of being able to do things without having to rely on electricity, we do just fine. We make it through just fine, and this is why we do what we do. Now, a lot of people make this assumption that it is only for a massive grid down, whatever situation, polar shift, so on and so forth. Well, yeah, we like to prepare the best we can for those things, but really, most of the time, these things are implemented for the everyday occurrences that happen and can happen to any of us. And this is also why I have a treadle machine. I don't ever have to rely on electricity, no matter what time of the year it is, whether we have power or not. That is just what I use all the time. I love it, and that's how I do all of my sewing, and have been doing that for, gosh, I don't even know how many years, maybe 10 years now. I can't remember how long, maybe 9. Maybe it was 2013 that I got the treadle machine. So it has been a blessing. I love having that. And especially back when I was pumping out a lot of skirts for the store every week, hit another one of the usual power outages, but I was able to keep doing business because I didn't need the electricity to run my sewing machine. So there's just a couple of examples there. So let's talk a little bit about food, why some people grow their own food, or even if they're not at a place where they can put in a decent garden, they're stocking up on food and putting it away. Some of the reasons people are doing this is to buy food now before the prices get even higher and put them away so that you've got tomorrow's food at today's prices or yesterday's prices, depending on when you purchased it. Also, because especially right now, and by the time you're seeing this video, it's going to be 3 weeks out from the time it's shot, so things can change a lot in that 3 weeks. But already we're seeing food shortages here in the United States and all over the world, and there are certain countries that the people are uprising because of these food shortages, even in countries that are typically the most obedient. That is how bad it's getting. This is why a lot of us do what we do, because we know, and we've learned a lot of this from experience, that we cannot depend on the local grocery store to have what we need when we need it. And for us, there was some years back where we had, because we don't get a lot of snow here, generally speaking, but one year we had this freak blizzard come through here, and it blocked off the roads into our small little remote town on both sides. And so the trucks that bring the groceries into the store were not able to get through because it was that bad. Thus, our local grocery store, because you have to understand supply and demand, typically your store only has enough inventory for 3 days of regular shopping. But when something like that happens, when you have a power outage or the roads get blocked off or whatever, people start running to the store and grabbing everything off the shelves. It amazes me that people don't see this pattern, but it happens all the time, all the time. Just look what happened in 2020. And look what happens every time there's some kind of water contamination. And people either don't have any water coming into their home, or the water coming in is contaminated and they can't use it. They run down to the store, and within an hour, all of the water is gone. All the bottled water and anything that is drinkable is gone. It's cleaned off the shelves. So that's why we have backup water supplies, or a way to collect and clean our own water. And that's why we have backup food supplies. So if the trucks can't get through for a whole week because maybe the road was washed out, like there's something else that's happened around here. We've had roads completely wash out where trucks or nobody could get through. And yet we're taken care of. We don't have to depend on whatever the local store is carrying or not carrying, as the case may be. And so, again, this is why we do what we do. Now, coming back to the things like this gardening in particular, or the using an off-grid laundry setup, or anything that requires extra physical work and time to get it done, or even just washing dishes by hand instead of relying on an electric dishwasher. Well, some of these things we do to help save us money, but some of this work is, even when times are good and we have all the power we need and the store has all the food we need, we want to stay practiced up. We want to get familiar with this hard work that is involved in doing these things. So when that time happens, whatever it is, even if it only affects our own little household, we know how to handle it. We have the skills needed to be able to grow this, or wash that, or sew that, or whatever it is that we're doing. And as things continue to seem to get worse around us, and we see more of this stuff going on, it still surprises me how people can't seem to put the pieces together to understand why a lot of us make the choices we make to be a little more self-sufficient, because we know the government's not always going to be there for us, even though there's sadly still a lot of people that think the government's going to take care of them in times of crisis, but that's not what history shows us. Or that their friends and family will take care of them because they're the ones putting up, but you can't put your guarantee in that. I mean, if those friends and family are building their own lifeboat to support their household, that doesn't mean they're going to have enough room and enough supplies to take care of those that just don't want to do it because they don't want to put in the time, resources, and effort it takes to get to that point. So people have to understand they need to build their own lifeboat. And if we are parents or grandparents, then we are responsible for those in our own household. If we're not going to look ahead far enough to consider what we should be doing to take care of them in the event of a crisis, we're not doing the job that we are supposed to be doing. If a person's focus is all on just living in the now and not looking out for their own future and the future of their family, they're going to be the ones that are going to suffer the most. Now, it is not to say that those of us who've been doing this for a while have it all figured out, or that when a crisis hits, we're not going to find that we still have some holes, because you never know what exactly that situation is going to be. But we do the best we can, and every little bit we do does help put us in a better position, even if it's something as simple as just having a handful of candles for a power outage. At least that's something. And if you don't have any flashlights, candles, or anything, and you have a power outage and it's pitch black where you're at, you're going to wish you had just a small handful of candles, if nothing else. As I said, I've talked about these topics. I have a whole series of preparedness videos that go back for the whole past 5.5 years or so. Patrick and I shot a series together that is 11 parts. That one's a few years old. And then more recently, I did one about how to get started in preparedness. If you're interested, I'll put links to these different playlists and specific videos that if you're just now kind of waking up to the importance of doing these things, or maybe this video kind of got you thinking, please go check those videos out. They should help get you started, because I know it can seem overwhelming when you look at people like ourselves, for instance, who've been doing this for a long time, and you compare that to where you're at now. You can't do that. You have to just figure out what it is you need the most. Do you need to put up food first because you can't live without food or water? Then start with that and do a little bit at a time. But in the meantime, you can still grab a candle or two or a flashlight or two to have on hand. They don't have to be big, expensive items. You don't have to take a whole paycheck and spend it on freeze-dried foods. It doesn't have to be that way. Get started on at least growing something small, like a few herbs in your windowsill. So many ways that you can get started. And we cover that in some of these different videos. Just like I said in the video about the only right way to prepare, really, there's no wrong or right way other than just doing something, because again, every little bit counts when you're looking out for the future of yourself and your family. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that maybe some of you found this helpful to kind of reinstate what you already know, what you've already learned, or something that will help you to be able to communicate with family members and friends who have some of these same questions, and even maybe share this video with them. And hopefully it will help them too, because this is about, I share this stuff because I care about people, and when people have, and I know these are a lot of times genuine questions, not people just being trolls, and they don't get it. Well, I want to help them get it, because now we can't put this off any longer. It's really important that we do what we can to take care of ourselves instead of depending on somebody else to do it for us. All right, well, please share your stories with us down below. Any tips and ideas that you have for people who are new at this or considering this, or how you answer these questions yourself, because this interaction is really great. It helps us all learn and grow. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.